The next one we're going to hear from is Justin Alexander, and he's going to be reading to you There Is No Struggle, There Is No Progress. And Justin is giving that speech for Frederick Douglass. This speech was made at a West Indian, in 1857, a West Indian celebration, 35th celebration of their emancipation. And Frederick Douglass knew at the time that the Civil War was eventually going to start. And he knew that there was going to be, it was going to draw in slavery. The first thought of the Civil War was it was just the South wanted to secede. But Frederick Douglass, who I believe really was one of the founding fathers of the war, he was the Martin Luther King of that time. He was the driving force. He was the person. You have to ask yourself, why after 200 plus years of slavery did we all of a sudden have a civil war to end slavery? And Frederick Douglass was born a slave, freed himself, and then went on to educate himself. And the speech you're about to hear is a man that was born into slavery, found a way to get himself educated without much help, and then traveled not just the United States but the world, making speeches like this.
The general sentiment of mankind is that a man who will not fight for himself when he has the means of doing so is not worth being fought for by others, and this sentiment is just. For a man who does not value freedom for himself will never value it for others, or put himself to any inconvenience to gain it for others. Such a man, the world says, may lie down until he has sense enough to stand up. It is useless and cruel to put a man on his legs if in the next moment his head is to be brought against a curbstone. A man of that type will never lay the world under any obligation himself, but will be a moral pauper, a drag in the wheels of society, and if he too be identified with the peculiar variety of the race, he will entail disgrace upon his race as well as upon himself. The world in which we live is very accommodating to all sorts of people. It will cooperate with them in any measure which they propose. It will help those who earnestly help themselves, and will hinder those who hinder themselves. It is very polite, and never offers its services unasked. Its favors to individuals are measured by an unerring principle in this: respect those who respect themselves, and despise those who despise themselves. It is not within the power of unaided human nature to preserve and pitying the people who are insensible to their own wrongs and indifferent to the attainment of their own rights. The poet was as true to common sense as to poetry when he said, "Who would be free, themselves must strike the blow." The whole history of the progress of human liberty shows that all concessions yet made to her august claims have been born of an earnest struggle. The conflict has been exciting, agitating, all-absorbing, and for the time being, putting all other tumults to silence. It must do this, or it does nothing. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation in men who want crops without plowing the ground, they want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, and it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. Find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have found out the exact measure of injustice and wrong which will be heaped upon them. And these will continue until they are resisted, with either words, or blows, or with both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. In the light of these ideas, Negroes will be hunted in the North and held and flogged in the South, so long as they submit to those devilish outrages and make no resistance, either moral or physical. Men may not get all they pay for in this world, they certainly pay for all they get. If we ever get free from oppressions and wrongs heaped upon us, we must pay for their removal. We must do this by labor, by suffering, by sacrifice, and if needs be, by our lives and the lives of others.